Buffalo, get ready, because this weekend, everything changes. After 53 years of memories, chants, snow games, and heartbreak inside the old Highmark Stadium, the Buffalo Bills are stepping into a brand new home, and the entire football world is watching. This is not just another preseason game, this is history. And the people who got the first real look inside, they are already saying it's unlike anything Bills fans have ever experienced. Let's set the scene. It's early Friday morning, hours before kickoff weekend, and NFL on CBS announcer Andrew Catalon is walking through the doors of the brand new stadium for the very first time. He arrived around 8 in the morning with nothing but a cup of coffee and a sense of anticipation. And by the time he stepped onto the field, he was, in his own words, completely blown away. Walking down onto the turf, he said it had this almost European soccer stadium feel to it. Sleek, modern, and dramatically different from anything Buffalo has seen before. When he climbed up into the seating bowl and looked around at the vantage points from the lower sections, he couldn't find a single bad seat in the entire building. Not one. For a broadcaster who has worked in dozens of stadiums across the country, that is not a small compliment. But here's where it gets juicy. The broadcast booths themselves have become the talk of the building. Local Buffalo radio voices Chris Brown and Steve Tasker, who will be calling the game for the Bills radio network, have been going back and forth all week about whose booth is better. The television side, naturally, gets the primo real estate. The vantage point up top is stunning, and network money clearly buys network views. But here's the detail nobody expected. There is now an actual bathroom inside the broadcast booth. Not down the hall, not around the corner, inside the booth. For anyone who's ever sat through a 4-hour football broadcast, that upgrade alone might be the most talked about amenity in the entire building. And it's not just the broadcasters who are floored. The buzz inside the building has been described as swanky for practically everyone who walks through the doors, from the press level all the way down to the exclusive clubs near the broadcast area. Even the little things like warm water coming out of the bathroom sink taps have people stopping mid-sentence to comment on how far this new building is from the stadium fans grew up with. Now let's talk about the emotional side of this, because it is real. For a lot of Bills fans, watching the old stadium get torn down piece by piece over the last several months has been genuinely difficult. 53 years of history, playoff runs, tailgates, snow-covered miracles, all of it tied to that one building. There's a nostalgic ache that comes with watching a place like that disappear. But according to the people who've now walked the halls of the new building, that nostalgia doesn't last long once you step inside. The comparison being thrown around this week is almost too perfect. It's like sliding out of a beautifully preserved classic muscle car, charming, iconic, but bare bones, and climbing into a brand new, fully loaded SUV with screens, heated seats, and every modern convenience imaginable. You miss the old car's soul for about 5 seconds. Then you remember why upgrades exist. Bills fans are finally getting the kind of modern amenities that fans in other NFL cities have enjoyed for years, in some cases decades, and this weekend they get to experience it for the very first time live during a real game. Speaking of the game, this is where things get interesting on the football side, because there's a massive storyline brewing that goes way beyond a new building. The Buffalo Bills have a brand new first-time head coach calling the shots, and everyone around the league is watching to see how he handles it. Joe Brady, barely 37 years old, steps into his very first game as a head coach this weekend, and the eyes of the entire coaching fraternity are on him. Here's why that matters so much. For the last several years, Brady called plays from the comfort of the coaching booth, high above the field with a bird's-eye view of everything happening below. Now, he's down on the sidelines, in the chaos, in the noise, managing both sides of the ball at once with headsets buzzing, coaches shouting information, and zero time to think twice. Insiders say this is one of the most fascinating storylines to watch all preseason. Where does he go when the offense comes off the field? Does he stay locked into his own unit, or does he pivot instantly to talk defense? There's even a brand new NFL rule this year that allows head coaches to designate an assistant to throw the red replay challenge flag, a small, seemingly bureaucratic change, but one that speaks volumes about just how overwhelmed modern head coaches can become trying to manage every single decision during a game. Some of the league's most hands-on head coaches are expected to hand that duty off entirely, just to keep their focus locked on their own side of the ball. And Brady isn't walking into this completely blind. His offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, has serious pedigree, the kind of experience that comes from being on a Super Bowl winning staff. But here's the twist. Carmichael has spent almost his entire career on the sidelines, not up in the booth. So for this game at least, he's the one heading upstairs, taking on a role that's brand new for him too. Nothing about this coaching setup is set in stone. There's already chatter that the quarterback's coach could end up being the eyes in the sky before the season is out. It's a full organizational experiment happening in real time, right in front of the entire fan base. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Will the Buffalo Bills actually play their starters in this game? Because that debate has been raging inside the media all week. On one hand, preseason football carries real risk. Injuries happen. Careers change in a single unlucky play. On the other hand, there's a compelling argument that if you're ever going to play your stars in a preseason game, this is exactly the game to do it. Why? Because it's a 1 o'clock afternoon kickoff, the exact same time slot as 3 of the Bills' first regular season home games. Getting the starters into that specific game rhythm, in that exact environment, with a full month left before the real opener, is being framed as smart, calculated risk-taking rather than reckless preseason gambling. If someone tweaks something minor now, there's still time to heal before it actually counts. There's also a completely unique wrinkle this year that has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with simple unfamiliarity. This is a brand new building. New sightlines, new shadows, new angles. Even something as basic as knowing exactly where the play clock is positioned becomes a genuine adjustment. Getting players comfortable in that environment before the stakes are real could end up being just as valuable as any rep on the practice field. And if there's one connection every single Bills fan wants to see translate from the practice field to the actual game, it's the one between Josh Allen and DJ Moore. Moore has reportedly been the headline of training camp, and not because he's struggling, quite the opposite. He has exceeded expectations across the board. When Josh Allen was asked about him directly in a press conference, he couldn't hold back a smile, praising Moore for the way he simply erases mistakes on the field. That is elite-level praise from a franchise quarterback about a wide receiver he's only had a short amount of time to build chemistry with. And according to people who know Moore personally from his time in Chicago, none of this should be surprising. He's described as humble, grounded, and blessed with an exceptionally high football IQ. The kind of player who naturally sees the game the same way elite quarterbacks do. That shared vision is exactly why insiders expect their connection to have grown exponentially through training camp, and why so many eyes will be locked on to every single snap they share in this first preseason test. But offense isn't the only story here. Arguably, the defense is the bigger transformation. This unit has been completely reshaped. New coordinator, new scheme, new play-calling philosophy, and an influx of youth with 12 defensive players drafted into the organization over just the last 2 draft classes. That is a staggering number, and it signals a clear organizational decision: lean into youth, lean into development, and trust the process. The team is shifting toward a scheme that has become a calling card for legendary defenses in league history, and the transition is being led by a coordinator who, by his own staff's admission, hasn't called plays in a live football game in roughly 4 years. That is a massive unknown heading into this season, and how the defense adapts early will be one of the most closely watched threads all preseason long. there's a deeper story here too, one that speaks to how quickly the NFL turns over talent. It's been noted that a striking number of players who started games for their teams in last year's playoffs aren't even on a roster right now. The league moves fast, and it moves without sentiment. That reality is part of why this coaching staff felt the timing was right to lean into change, trust their young talent, and let this new generation of Bills defenders step into a bigger spotlight. Zooming out even further, there's a broader trend happening across the entire NFL right now, and Buffalo is very much a part of it. With the rise of name, image, and likeness money in college football, players are staying in school longer than they used to. That means they're arriving in the NFL more experienced, more polished, and more ready to contribute immediately. Teams are noticing. Teams are adjusting. And teams that are willing to trust young talent early are increasingly being rewarded for it. So here's where it all comes together. This weekend isn't just a football game. It's the emotional final chapter of one era and the electric opening chapter of another. A brand new stadium is making its official debut. A brand new head coach is calling his very first game, adjusting to a sideline role after years upstairs. A completely reshaped, youth-infused defense is stepping onto the field together for real for the very first time. And the connection between Josh Allen and his newest star receiver is about to face its first true test in front of a live crowd. Add in the fact that some of the most recognizable broadcast voices in football are also experiencing this building for the very first time. And you have every single ingredient for an unforgettable, chaotic, emotional, can't-look-away kind of night. Buffalo has waited a long time for a moment like this. 53 years of history just walked out the door, and a brand new chapter is walking right in behind it. The question now is simple. How will this new era begin? If you want to see how this all plays out, make sure you smash that like button, drop a comment telling us what you're most excited to see from the Bills this season, and subscribe so you never miss a single update as this incredible new chapter unfolds. Buffalo, this is just the beginning.